Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, BethChatsBooks. Now today is going to be a brief catch up on some of the books that I have been reading. So I haven't read that many books since I last spoke to you, but obviously, like I did say in the last video, I have been working during this very peculiar time, so I haven't been doing lockdown reads. So unfortunately, I've seen so many booktubers are doing extra content, which is amazing, and I'm really enjoying watching those as kind of light relief once I've finished work, and I would love to participate a little bit more. I've seen that Lauren's done a lot of cozy reading nights every Friday now to encourage people, and I feel a bit guilty because I feel like I maybe should be producing more content, but I am still working full time at the moment. I work as a receptionist at a GP centre, so I'm still needed. I'm not exactly a key worker, that's how I would describe my job role, but I am still needed, and so I have to go in. So my reading hasn't been quite as adventurous, but like I mentioned in the last video, due to libraries being closed, I have still just been going through my library pile slowly. And before I go into those books, I will just mention that I am in the quarterfinals judging round for Group C of the non-fiction booktube prize this year. So the non-fiction category is new. Robert over at Barter Horde's channel, who I'll link down below, he has decided to run the booktube prize for another year. He started it last year, and I think it's grown exponentially this year. There's a lot more judges on it, and I was lucky enough to be able to participate. I did request to participate, so I judged Group D in the fiction octafinals round, and I will be doing a video that kind of just goes through all those books because now I can actually talk about them. Some of them have gone on, but as I'm no longer the judge for the second round in which some of those books went through, I think I am allowed to talk about them now. But like I've just said in a waffly way, I am judging the quarterfinals non-fiction. That's new, that wasn't around last year, so he's decided to do a fiction prize and a non-fiction prize. So yeah, I'm judging that one. So I've ordered some books from Amazon, but I will just quickly read out the list of books that I'm going to be judging. So the first one is Solitary by Albert Woodfox. I don't know much about any of these books. I know that obviously I'm getting them all in hardbacks because non-fiction is a little bit more expensive and usually comes out in hardback. And a lot of these, their paperbacks will only be coming out next year, so it has been a bit more expensive to judge non-fiction than fiction, but I'm really passionate about reading more non-fiction, so I'm quite happy to do so. So I'm just going to go and insert a picture here and just reel them off because I don't know much about them. The next one is How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram X. Kendi. Then I've also got Maybe You Should Talk to Someone by Laurie Gottlieb. I've also got Parkland by Dave Cullen, Charged by Emily Bazelon, and Underlined by Robert McFarland. So they're the 6 that I will be judging, and I won't be able to talk about them for a while, but I'm excited for them coming. Let's get into the books that I did manage to read. So the first one is Fire Sermon by Jamie Quattro. Now this follows Maggie, a woman who is happily married with 2 children. I think it's a boy and a girl if I remember correctly. And then this book is kind of musing on her having an affair with a man called James. So she's very religious, she's a Christian, and this book is a musing on the idea of temptation and desire and infidelity and how that affects her identity, especially her religious identity. So she, in this book, does a series of letters that she writes to James that we're not quite sure which ones end up, or if they ever end up kind of being sent to James. There's some emails as well. And she is still in love with her husband, and it's just really juicy. It's very much a book which is just a zoomed in portrayal of this woman's life, and this reads almost like a diary. It's her internal thoughts about what she's done, and sometimes her justifications, and sometimes her musings on what she's become and how she loses a bit of her identity through this. I thought it explored female sexuality and desire really well. this is just a juicy little read. I really enjoyed it. It is quite short. I think it's around the 200 page mark, so it could be read in one sitting, one afternoon. But I thoroughly enjoyed it, so I gave it 4.5. It didn't have that extra little push that would justify a 5-star read for me, but I did really enjoy this one. And then the next one I read was Middle England by Jonathan Coe. Now this was a really pleasant surprise read for me. So I know that there's 2 other books in this series. One is the Rotters Club and the other is the Closed Circle, and the Rotters Club follows some of these characters in childhood in the 70s and the school system, and the Closed Circle follows them I think in middle age, and this is kind of towards the twilight years, not quite there, so the characters are around late 50s, 60s in this novel. So this follows Laurie and Benjamin, who are brother and sister, and they have an ageing father, Colin. So the novel starts with them losing their mother, and Colin, who has been married to her for years, is now facing living on his own. And so the brother and sister have to step up and find a way to stay in touch with him and keep connected to him, as well as grieving and moving forward. So Benjamin is a bit of a failed writer in this, and he keeps moving house. He had this one epic romance that didn't really go anywhere. And his sister, Lois, has a daughter, Sophie, who we learn Sophie develops a romance with a man called Ian. And so it follows these 3 main characters. It also is in the background of lots of political turning points for our country. So it has the coalition government, it has Brexit in here, it has the race riots in London, the 2012 Olympics. There's loads of relevant background turning points that are going on and how it impacts on the characters. So I actually really enjoyed these characters and I fell in love with them, and it's really encouraged me to go and read the other 2 books. This had a really great flowing novel style where I would start reading a page and I couldn't put it down till I finished the next bit, and then it catapulted me on something else. Considering it deals with different characters, you can get immersed straight away into the next part of the story. It wasn't clunky, you weren't trying to figure out who was who. It was done very, very well. And also, if you can see, considering, if I can show you how full the pages were and how small the font was, it was actually a pleasure to race through, because this is over 400 pages and I thoroughly enjoyed this. For people who are motivated to read it because it's kind of got some political and social background to contemporary Britain, then there are some good things there to get involved with, but ultimately this is a novel, not non-fiction, so it has the character development that I really enjoyed. And obviously if you just wanted to focus on the politics, you might find this a little bit different to what you expected, but for me that was a really pleasant surprise. So I will go back and read the other 2, and I thoroughly enjoyed this, so I gave this 4.5 out of 5 stars. And then I read The Argonauts by Maggie Nelson. Now this reads as a bit of a non-fiction. It's a memoir of Maggie and her relationship with Harry, who's kind of a queer transgender individual, but Harry undergoes operations to remove his breasts, but he doesn't fully transition, and this whole book is looking at the idea of having a relationship with somebody who's non-binary that doesn't really identify as transgender. So Harry injects testosterone, and it's about Maggie coming to terms with her relationship with Harry, and then musings on how the outside world see it. I'm trying to be very delicate with what I say, because I feel like the queer LGBT community and transgenders and transitioning is all very difficult to talk about right now, because it's always charged with whether you're being politically correct or not, and I find it quite an intimidating subject to broach. So this was really refreshing for me, because Maggie was very honest about the confusion that surrounds it, and about her own coming to terms with that relationship with Harry and the identity and what it meant for her and what it meant for Harry, and supporting that in the background of them getting pregnant with Iggy, her son. and how feminism gets talked about in length in here, and womanhood and queerness, and it was really interesting, but it's really dense. So this book is only 180 pages, but it reads very much like a non-fiction, not a fiction, so it doesn't flow, and there's loads of different thought processes and Maggie's going in here, which I thought was a really interesting style, but in terms of reading sometimes can be a little bit jarring. So this is definitely not a book that I would recommend that you can read while there's TV on in the background, and some passages might make more sense being read aloud also. But I really did enjoy this. I gave this 4 stars. It's fantastically written, and I really highly respect Maggie Nelson, and this is just a brutally honest and beautiful depiction of her life, a chapter of her life and her identity, and I found it so engrossing. But I do think I will have to reread it at a later date to really appreciate it, because it's doing something very ambitious, and it's an incredible core text, but I don't know whether I was in the right frame of mind to appreciate it at the time, so I gave it 4 stars. So unfortunately that's all I've read. I haven't read much more. I'm in the process of starting The Dark Circle by Linda Grant. I've tried to read the first 2 chapters and realised that I probably need to read a lot more of a chunk of this book in one go to get into the writing style, because it was a little bit jarring. The first chapter was from one point of view, the second was from a different point of view and a different character. Because I wasn't fully connected when I was reading this, I'll need to go back and start from the beginning, but I'm hoping I enjoy this. I know so many people have Marmite responses to this particular book, and I know it was, I can't remember whether it was longlisted or shortlisted for the Women's Prize for Fiction at some point, but I remember Jane Campbell reading it and not enjoying it, so I'll have to see what I think about this one. And then obviously I've got the rest of my library books to read. My auntie, I will just go get it for you, she did kindly send me a book for Easter. No, that is American Dirt by Janine Cummings, and this is a book that every time I go into Waterstones I think the hardcover is just beautiful. I've always wanted to read, but I didn't want to justify paying for the hardback, but it's always been on my radar. There's quite a few books that are just floating around on my radar that in case the opportunity arises to treat myself, I'll order, or I'll take out the library. So she's kindly given me this. It is a bit of a thriller, I believe, but so many people have had a very jarring response to this. There's some controversiality going around with this, and I can't remember why now, but that's originally why it was on my radar. But it says here, yesterday Lydia had a bookshop, yesterday Lydia was married to a journalist, yesterday she was with everyone she loved most in the world, today her 8-year-old son Luca is all she has left. So I'm really excited. I really like the premise of this, and it does say that Stephen King and Tracy Chevalier and other people that I respect have said it's really good on the back, so we shall see. But that's everything. I'm sorry it's not more exciting, but thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll be back very soon with a brand new video. Bye now.